Hi, everybody, and welcome to Making Light to Humans Being. It's a new year, and here we go with new topics. Today's is inspired by a blog post that I was reading this morning from Matthew Fox about toxic masculinity and things that keep other things hidden, meaning that we may not always have the vernacular to talk about what we want to talk about. We may not have the capability to talk about what needs to be talked about. And so we tend to keep things hidden. And so Kate and I explore a little bit about how we keep things hidden, how this blog post has impacted us, and just begin that conversation. I have a feeling we're going to come back to it in later episodes, but for today, this is the beginning of keeping it hidden, and this is Making Light to Humans Being. Hope you enjoy the episode. I follow this, I guess I'll call him theologian. He's a creation spiritualist, a cosmologist, maybe. I don't know. It's so hard to say with titles. He's a
What do you mean by creation?
Creation spirituality is how do I want to say it? It's like a form, it's a label put on a belief system, if you will, that everything is connected.
Okay, it's nothing to do with creationism.
No. It has nothing to do with creationists. It just has to do more with like gods and everything, the spirituality of connectedness, like and they'll call it cosmology too. They just, I don't know why they named it that. Who even named it? It's all an illusion, Kate. I have no idea. Anyway.
Him.
So, but he was a priest, a Dominican priest. He was excommunicated because of his beliefs that God is within all of us instead of God being this separate thing, and organized religion likes God over there and that all that type of stuff. So, but he's really talking about right now, he's really kind of focused on what he calls toxic masculinity, that we have created this, our cultures have created this system of men have to be this, and it's separated them from their true nature and actually being the divine masculine, or embracing the divine masculine, which incorporates aspects of divine femininity, divine masculine. There's a balance, all this stuff. So he's talking about this in little snippets every single day. But today he talked about how men really aren't taught the language of emotions, communicating truly how they feel, being able to connect to others. They've lost the ability to have rituals and ceremonies to pass. As you know, in Native cultures, they would have coming of age rituals, like those have all disappeared. And so he was talking about all of that. And he made a comment about when men don't have the language to speak about how they feel or even speak about their own spirituality. He talked about how they keep things hidden. And I'm like, oh, keeping things hidden is a whole human trait as well, particularly in our Western culture, where we don't talk about how we feel. And there was an ad in his meditation today for a gentleman who I believe runs either a women's football league.
Yes, I saw that. Was that Calm?
Yeah, Calm. Mm-hmm. And when he talks, it's like he's being in the beginning being interviewed by a sportscaster, and he talks about how blah, 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 blah. But if you scroll over, he wants you to go back and scroll over the thing, what he says, in particular words pop up that really say, I'm paraphrasing again, I'm struggling, I need help. Because
I have to say that having watched that, like you say, this is what we were called to talk on, because I had to get my blood pressure taken at the doctor's. I haven't been into the doctor's for 2 years, just because I'm on HRT, no other reason. And I've resisted, but they'll get to the point where they won't give me any more unless I get my blood pressure taken. Went in, there was a poster as I went, it was dead. It was like really weird. It's like walking through a morgue. Poster, exactly the same thing. It had in big letters, "My son is absolutely fine," something else. And then in between it was like, "My son is behaving very strangely and I don't know," like, and the whole story was saying, "My son is really struggling and actually he's admitted he's feeling so low that he's thought about suicide." But the words that are highlighted, so it's like what you're talking about, but exactly the opposite. But the longer story is, "My son's in trouble," but if you just see it from a distance, it says, "My son is absolutely fine."
Yeah.
And actually, so it's the same thing, but the other way around. Because when I watched that video and the way he talks, he's right. It sounded like every single sports reporter, not so much sports reporter, but every single sports player, everything that they would say, yeah, it was fine, we kicked ass, we did this, we did, just, I want to say platitudes, I mean, they're not, but you know what I mean, they're just meaningless, not just, woo, get us.
Yeah. You can totally tune it out. But what he was really saying was, the other thing. And I thought,
which was what, because I interrupted you, what was the message was really that I can't remember that I'm struggling. I can't remember what the actual message was, something like that. I'm really struggling and I don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah. Was what, and it just really made me think about so there's so many things that have just been happening of late. Like we've read the book Finding the Mother Tree and the Mycelium network that connects the trees, and really to some degree our bodies even imitate the Mycelium network when you look at lungs and you look at how our brains are created or how they look when you look at them closely. But I was even thinking of it in terms of the work that we do from an intuitive perspective, like how we have gone through over the last, we're having a big storm right now, so it's possible I will lose power. The lights have flickered. So if I disappear,
if we disappear, then the mycelium will take over and our messages will go through the mycelium.
There you go. Yay, fungus. What was I saying?
You said there's been a number of things going on with the book. You saying how it relates to the work we're doing.
Yes. Okay. So over the last couple of years, as we've worked on our intuitiveness, intuitive abilities have come out of the proverbial intuitive closet and have started our businesses and all of the things. We've really struggled with how to, this keeping it hidden, because is the work that we do acceptable, but it really adds to helping people connect to their animals, to nature, to their greater and higher good, to their higher power, all this type of thing, right? So I just felt like there was a conversation in the keeping it hidden about how you and I have worked through all of that, are still working through it, because there's still aspects of it that I'm still going, oh gosh, there I am hiding myself again. Oh, there I go. I can still find myself doing that and not having that language to be able to say it and help. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I do, but I feel like a fraud in that I think it's just I frame it differently. I feel no embarrassment, I don't think, about I relish being different. That's probably an egotistical thing in its own right, obviously. What silences me is not their approval. Okay, even saying it out loud, it is actually all going to the same thing. It's when I've mentioned it, it's the lack of reaction.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's mind-boggling that someone can say, I'm an animal communicator, and people go, oh. And you're like, really? Like, you don't have an animal? You've never wondered? I don't know if it's that it takes people off guard. So actually, it's silencing me for the same reason, because actually I'm not getting a positive reaction, albeit not because I think they'll think I'm nuts, but because I'm not getting a positive reaction. I just think it's really odd. I find it mind-boggling. I do. I don't know. Don't you?
That people don't know what it is, that part?
People don't react in any way, shape or form. Now, to be fair, a lot of times it's the people who don't particularly know me, and maybe they don't know what to say, but you're just like, I just, if somebody said I'm a nuclear physicist, I would say, wow, even if I would say something, but to just sort of go, oh.
I know. Yeah, it does. It really, yes, that reaction is probably, that's probably works the best to keep me hidden, if you will.
Okay, so I was thinking it's because people think I'm nuts, but I suppose it's the same thing. It's basically non-acceptance for whatever reason.
Yeah, or they don't know what to, they don't.
Yeah.
because there's even like there's possibly their own hidden aspect. Like if someone were, if I didn't know anything about it and someone said they were an animal communicator to me and I wasn't comfortable in my own skin, like, oh, is that a thing? Is that possible?
Yeah, that's what I expect people to say. Oh, really? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Or, oh, are you an animal behaviourist? Now, yesterday I went skinny dipping, which is just as well because I can't fit in anything else at the moment.
Talk about not being hidden.
I know. They're a really nice group of people. And one of the ladies there, can't remember how it came up. We were talking about chickens. I said we were talking about it getting dark because obviously we go when it's getting dark because you're not supposed to take your clothes off intentionally in front of other people. So we tend to go. So we went for sort of sunset.
You're not supposed to. Wait, why?
Well, it's not. It's I don't know what the rules are. It's not illegal to be naked, but you're not. But it is illegal to be naked if there are children or people who would be upset. Like if they come across you, that's fine, but you can't go to a crowded beach and take your clothes off.
Oh, it's a law thing. Oh,
yeah,
a man-made human law.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Cool. So we were talking about. I had been saying about how the times getting dark changes because I know, and I said I know that because I put my chickens away, and the lady said. Oh, you've got chickens? And I said, yes, I've got. How many have you got? 3. Then we talked a bit about the chickens. And then I started to say, I stopped myself. And then I just said it anyway. And I said, we were talking about them being on hormones. And I said, Nyla said she wanted to come off hormones. And I said, I am an animal communicator. And since I started doing it, and she's the only person I've ever said that to who said, oh, that's really interesting. So how do you communicate with them? Is this she didn't say telepathic. She said, is it a something thing? And I said, no, it's psychic. That's the only time I've ever had that sort of reaction. Other people are just sort of like, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. I either get the deer in headlights, like, I don't know which way to go with this, or I get, what exactly does that mean? And then I'll say pet psychic, because they understand the word psychic. They don't understand intuitive, which that's fine. And then from there, they're either ask more questions or they will just look at me like I'm nuts. And that's my interpretation. They just may not know what to do with that, because I do feel, and part of what Matthew Fox was talking about today, even in this keeping it hidden and people not having the language to express, they also don't have the connection to the intuition anymore. Intuition as a whole has been, boy, this is really kicking. Intuition as a whole has been suppressed for centuries, right? When the church stopped being in touch with nature, it started to suppress intuition and labeled witches and all of the things. So we can't even have the conversation about, I mean, everyone's intuitive, right? Everyone can trust their gut or not trust their gut, whether you take it to expand it. I don't want to say take it to another level because that creates judgment. I just mean like expand it. Whether you expand it or not, it just depends on your life's journey, in my humble opinion. But does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. And you know what's interesting is I realize now that this was the first opportunity I had, not opportunity per se, but I didn't shut down completely. It's the first time I sort of said that out loud. And I think actually what the lady said, and then I think what she said is always that like animal behavior. And I said, no, it's psychic. And then I just realized I then went on to say 2 things that completely undermined me as an animal communicator. I guess because I was making myself small again. It's like I don't think I'm like that. So I think I don't have these problems that other people speak of. And then as soon as I like look at it and analyze it, I'm like, that is exactly what I'm doing. I'm just doing it in my way. And that was, I said, she was talking about my dog only ever says to me that he's hungry. And I was like, because I said everyone can do it. And that's me saying there's nothing different about me, undermining my exceptional talent, shall I say. And then she said, and I said, if you think you know what they're saying, you're probably right. Again, undermining my thing, but just being friendly. Then she said, all my dog ever does is say, is I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. And I said, well, that's the same with my cat. And I said, and that's why I started the animal communication. To which she said, and now, and I went, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I basically said, well, basically, no, I haven't fixed that. So again, undermining everything I've done, because that at that moment, I'm like, either I have to go into the whole soul lesson. This is no longer about can you speak to animals. This is now about the soul level stuff. And I didn't want to go there.
Oh, why? Why do you? I'm just
Because
not.
it was a group of people I didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
particularly. It's not a quick conversation. It's one thing that they think, I don't mind people think I'm a lunatic, but I guess there is a bit of me that doesn't want people to think I'm soft. I don't mind them thinking I'm nuts, but there's woo-woo, soul, touchy, I guess there's something about the soul level lessons that maybe I'm less comfortable about sharing, because I don't want to preach at people. I have such an aversion to religion, but that also extends to anybody telling you how to live your life, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I wasn't prepared to go there.
Yeah.
I guess that is hiding, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is, because like in that, it's interesting too that this, okay, so soul level animal communication is when we work with the animal for the human to understand why the animal's doing what they're doing, because we believe they're here to help us evolve and grow. And so they do things to help us do that. So I find in my readings, when people contact me, which I get readings from word of mouth, and people enjoy the soul level, but there's still a scent of skepticism, if you will. Lucas is moving around. When we do this, when I go to that level, because that requires, it's like
is there, or do you think there is?
Well, there are some people are like, they get it. Okay, cool. They're not expecting it. Problem, that's an issue, is that I think it could be a marketing issue, as far as like we need to start to explain this a little bit more, because there is still this disconnect.
See, that was my original fear when we started the business course. That was my biggest fear about the soul level stuff, is people coming to me because they want to know why their cat isn't using a litter tray, and I start telling them that they need to love themselves more. Because like you say, the soul lesson, the reason Sally pushes about food is because she's teaching me about boundaries, and that's how she pushes me. And I did not want to go there and go, well, Sally's pushing my boundaries about food, and the reason it's taken me a year to fix it is because I haven't learned about boundaries. It's not because there's anything wrong with Sally, and it's not because I can't understand what she's saying. It's because I have not grown, it's taken me time. And so that was the soul lesson I didn't want to go into. But at the same time, by not telling them, it makes it look like me as an animal communicator is pretty shit, because one thing I signed up to do, animal communication, I haven't fixed. Because the reality is, it's actually nothing to do with Sally pushing at her food. It's about pushing me about food. It's about Sally teaching me my soul lesson about boundaries.
So, and like for me, my readings, I had one last week, and the readings tend to be, for me, like they're so profound and they can be so deep, because the animals are just really working with us. The client or the human, for me, the readings work better when the client arrives ready to understand that and then do the work.
Does your website say that?
No, and that's what I'm also thinking. I need to do a better job of explaining it. I need to, and I want to do, and the woman in that picture needs to do that too, the woman in the picture, I got new headshots is what I'm referring to, for those that don't know what I'm talking about. She would do that.
Kick-ass photos. We have to tell that. Kick-ass photos. Go to Julie's website, Julie Hurt dash.
Don't go to the website. Yeah, well, you can go to the website, please. However, the new picture is not there yet, because the new pictures are going to require a little bit of a redesign. So but you can go to my social media pages anyway.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah. So, but the soul, to me, the soul level is what makes our readings so much more impactful, different, helpful, and actually uncovers, if we're talking about things being hidden, uncovers so much more. And that's the stuff we need to, I think, kind of, maybe that's also.
I think I say that in that, have I? Because I must admit that when I started that was a bit that really embarrassed. I felt almost embarrassed, because I feel like the structure that Danielle taught us is you get one question and then we go to the soul lesson. And at that point, I'm like, you know, if they don't know what's coming here, that's embarrassing.
Mhm.
Because, but actually, I've never found it to be an issue.
No, I've never found it to be an issue. There are times when people are a little surprised, like, and what happens too for me is the soul lesson gets woven into the whole entire reading, and I rarely have to ask the actual specific soul level part. It actually just kind of blends. Um, but um, but people aren't quite. Some people show up and know that this is what's going to happen, but some people aren't quite. They're like, well, I was just worried if my cat is ill. Well, you know, and we can talk about that. There's just reasons as to why. And that sometimes that additional leap of faith is how it feels to me, can be hard for people. Because first you have to think as a client or a human, you have to think, okay, I'm going to accept that animal communication is a thing. Like that's a leap right now. And then, oh, now I have to, we're not the superior species. We're actually part of a bigger web, and these people and these animals are here to help. Like that's a whole.
And actually, we're the dummies, and they're teaching us.
Well, I believe that, but I wasn't going that far.
Well, did you remember we had our mastermind meeting on Monday?
Yes.
And they were talking about problem clients.
Yes.
And I was thinking, you said that I just told you to. I was one of the things that you had said is that you struggle with ending a conversation. Was that you? Someone said to end the conversation. Someone's Monica.
Yeah.
Monica. And then she said that I just told her to just, oh, this has been nice, see ya. And I thought, you know, that's quite funny. But the point is, I don't get repeat clients, so maybe my way is not best. Oh, there was a point to this. I have had a couple of times I've had messages as opposed to a booked reading asking me stuff, and I've actually been, and I don't know if maybe I'm being too harsh about this. In that, like the last one I had was like, give me all this detail, and I had given her my email address because she'd put all this stuff in the messenger, and I'd said, go to my website, and because we're a different time zone, if you can't find a time that suits me, you know, email me. So she messaged me all the information, obviously hadn't gone to my website. And I was just like, I said, I'm sorry, it's best I don't read this. If you want me to speak to your animal, I need to speak to him, not read what you've had to say. And I said, please go to my website and read about the soul lesson, animal communication, and if you're interested. So she's desperate, please help me, please help me, please help me. I send her to my website to actually work to where it will explain what to expect. Nothing. So this woman was biting my hand off. I don't know if she thought it was because it was going to be free. I don't know. That's another thing. I don't understand why people think you would be doing this for nothing.
Yeah, I don't either.
But
a lot of those can be scams, though, too. By the way.
Oh, I don't know.
That comes through Facebook Messenger, through my site, through my my business Facebook page. Is like they'll give me all this information, and I'll be in help, or even this other network that I belong to. And I've learned to just say, happy to help you, go to my website, book an appointment. Yeah. Because
you think they're scams?
Sometimes they are, I think.
For what?
Free, well, I'll just say free readings, or just trying to get, I don't know why. I think they're scams.
I'm quite hard about that, actually. It's sort of like, do you know what? I feel that now. If you don't want to pay for my services, then we are not a good match.
Yeah.
Like, I don't owe you anything. And
right.
What is the point? This woman he's a Labrador, 3/4 Labradoodle, very genuine problem. He started snapping at the dogs. He's adopted. They've only had him a few weeks. She's heartbroken. She doesn't know what to do. I feel it all, but it's like, you know, if you're not ready to hear what I have to say and you're not prepared to pay for what I have to say, then all that's going to happen is it's going to be a very awkward reading, and you're going to be very disappointed because I'm not going to give you easy answers.
Right.
Anyway, sorry, I've completely derailed the conversation.
I don't know if you could. Yes, no.
Going back to if you're ready, going back to the silent, men's secret spirituality.
Yes.
I'll be perfectly honest here. This is me being vulnerable. I had a reaction to it.
Which part? Is Matthew's video or the other?
Just about the men. Because why? Because I do, and this has come up a few times, and I'm aware of it. So there, I think of masculine energy as something I don't want,
Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
my ego loves masculine energy, because that's when I'm efficient, that's when I'm controlled, that's when I'm not lazy, that's when I'm driven, that's when I'm successful, all those things that come from a world of being in the corporate world, especially very male dominated corporate world. Having said that, a lot of the people I work with weren't alpha males at all. I mean, certainly the engineers are all quite, they may not be spiritual, but they're very quiet about stuff. They may be nerdy, but certainly the management side of corporate, as you know, is all very masculine, very time driven, very aggressive. But I do react to that. I'm very much, who the fuck wants to encourage the masculine side of anything? But that's because I still have that conflict inside myself over that.
Yeah. So this to me is like really interesting conversation. So how do I want to, I'm trying to figure out how I'm asking even the guides to help me. Okay. I'm going to back way up. So I'm going to do it in this terms. You have the divine feminine and the divine masculine. Both have been bastardized and or suppressed or oppressed, right? So both. But the point is that each one of us, as the divine having a human experience, I'm going to put it in these terms, should have a balance of both. Our cultures, and I can only talk to Western, particularly American culture, has taken masculinity and said, you must be soldier, warrior, all of the hyper masculine types of things, and made it so, and so Matthew Fox will say toxic, has made it so toxic, it's become so out of balance. So then when women now, as women, and so women and divine feminine are not necessarily the same thing. So I just want to make sure people understand that too, which we can discuss that later. But women now, we're reacting, I don't know, I'm going to go off the wrong path. Okay, so we've got toxic masculinity that in our culture, males have begun to be. There is no...
not just males. I don't think...
No, I agree. I'm just going to explain it in these type. Okay. So you've got like, I wrote down some things just so I wouldn't lose my train of thought either. Okay. So like, yes, we're like males in particular in our culture can't discuss feelings, can't talk about, can't grieve, can't just be human beings, right? They have to be this defined male. And then you have the female culture, which has been suppressed, oppressed, if you will, and moved out of society. Men make the decisions, women do not. So now I'm getting into like the human roles of male and female versus divine feminine, divine masculine. But we've kept women at bay. We weren't allowed to own property for so long. We couldn't vote, all the things we were pushed. So not only was divine femininity pushed down, but having it expressed as a feminine or a female in the human form was also pushed away. So now what you're starting to see is women are going, wait a minute, I'm just as valid, I'm just as good. And so we're fighting against or pushing against this toxic masculinity, which at the same time, because there is no language for men to talk or to connect with us, we're starting to push them even further away instead of understanding they too have been robbed of who they are from a balanced divine masculine, divine feminine as we have. And so we have to try to find a way. I kind of went in a really weird way, but we kind of have to find a way to talk about it. Does that make sense? That was a lot.
It does. And on an individual basis, I don't see, this is your white privilege sort of thing. I find it really hard to be sympathetic towards men.
Right.
But whilst I still understand, I can't possibly understand what it's like to be a man. There's a bit of me that goes, oh, boo-hoo. Just like fucking sort it out yourselves, you bastards. You know, I really, so that's my issue. And I like to think that on an individual basis, I wouldn't react like that. But as a sort of generic statement, there is a bit of me that goes, well, fuck you, actually. your problems, you created them, you sort them out, you bunch of assholes. But
Right.
that's so tell me what the divine masculine is.
That's a great question. I'm not 100% sure I know completely. Okay, so I will say the divine, so he will go through, I'll have to go back and listen, but if you look at information, divine masculine is knowledge, divine feminine is wisdom.
Okay.
So you can take a concept and talk about things in those terms. So divine feminine would be compassion, nurturing, that type of thing. If I think of
all the wishy-washy, see, that's a masculine thing talking.
right,
because
I mean,
I'm still very driven by, I still, although I value those things, there is still a huge bit of me, this is a being silent bit as well, that does not want to acknowledge those as valid because I have been taught they are weak.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Even though I know
right,
it's not true, there's still so much ego wrapped up in that. As soon as you say empathic, compassionate, I sort of go, oh, for fuck's sake, you know, like it's weak stuff.
right,
It's so contrary. I can't believe here we are. How long have we been doing this that I can get so het up about this stuff when my whole life's work now is about being that divine feminine, and I still have this huge part of me going, oh, I don't want to be associated with that shit.
right, right. When
I want to be strong.
yeah, I mean, when you look at, okay, so even in caring for people, there is a divine feminine and a divine masculine aspect in caring for people. Divine masculine would come at caring for people probably more in a structured way, more in a knowledge-based way, whereas divine feminine would probably will bring in the more the compassion, the empathic, the more natural aspects of things. If you talk about power in terms of divine masculine, divine feminine, you still have, again, the divine masculine would be more of the go out and get it, more, I don't want to say force, but more, how do I want to say, but where the divine feminine, I'll put it this way, divine feminine would be more of the come alongside, nurture, bring people up from where they are, understanding. And there's pros and cons to both sides of it. It's just, and but the strength is putting them together and not keeping them apart. And what we have done as a species is we've pushed them apart and tried to raise one, the masculine, and suppress the other, the feminine. And that's where we're seeing all this imbalance and like all these different things. And then the imbalance then even goes into being a male and being a female human. It's fascinating, but I don't hope I explained that a little bit. Yeah. I mean, we could go into different concepts and show, but I think the biggest, for me, the biggest role model in the balance of divine feminine, divine masculine, and in humanity are the indigenous cultures, because they continue, they didn't lose it when, of course, you know, other cultures such as ours took it, forced them out of their harmony. Then of course some of that was lost, but they still many times practice much of it, and we can learn so much from them. All the things that we see, even the oppression of them was probably more of a toxic masculinity than a feminine aspect, but if that makes sense.
Say that sentence again.
So the way that even European culture, I would say, overran, suppressed, in particularly in this country, indigenous cultures, is a toxic masculinity. Warfare is a toxic masculinity, because there's fighting and discord, which isn't necessarily one or the other, but when it becomes so hyper, whatever the word is, hyper, that it becomes warfare, that becomes toxic masculinity. In, as I listen to Matthew Fox, and that's my interpretation of some of the things he's saying. And that's where we begin to see the huge amounts of imbalance. that we've got. There's no reason why we couldn't have lived alongside, learned from one another, European culture and Native American culture, for example. But no, we had to,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Yeah, and I think that's it. When you start looking at stuff like that, I find it all overwhelming, because then, you know, you look at all that stuff, then you look at how church has and religion, and I think that's all very masculine.
Absolutely. Yep.
And the education system and all these things and the patriarchy and all that, and then I feel completely overwhelmed by it. It's like the men have fucked everything up. It's just, you know, and everything that's wrong in the world is this. Yes,
Yeah.
but and I think the aftermath of COVID is going to show a lot of this, because obviously all mental health is now becoming a bigger and bigger issue.
Right.
You know, I think, is it young men are the highest suicide?
And that's part of why Matthew Fox is talking about some of this, is part of the reason why is this the suicide rate among young men, and this lack of ritual, lack of understanding the divine masculine and the role it has to play, he's saying this to make people aware, to make men aware, but also I think to make women aware. I have a step nephew, if you will, who is struggling. And I mentioned to his mom this idea of toxic masculinity, the divine masculine, divine feminine. And I understand in the moment she wasn't able to hear what I was saying, because she brought up the Me Too movement in a, well, we women are trying to take everything away from men. And that's not my intent. I would like to help right the scales, because I even have a stepdaughter who's in corporate America, and there's a book that I just heard about as far as how women need to participate in the workplace. But the book actually brings about more of the divine feminine aspects in the workplace, which is so needed right now, because like what you were saying, you and I both experienced, we had to go into performance reviews as a man, because we're talking to men in order to get the pay we deserve. And it's very unlike, it's like us trying to swim the wrong way in a river. It's just not how we do. But I was trying to explain to my sister-in-law how I could see that my nephew was struggling because of the oppression of who he is as a male human being, because we've taken away this divine masculine. And she wasn't in a place to hear it. And I totally understand, but I can see it in him, and I feel terrible. But that's the divine feminine qualities in me trying to nurture and come alongside as well. So I don't know. Well,
Yeah, it's a tricky subject, isn't it?
well, it just shows how, to me, it shows how much work we have to do, how many centuries, right? This is like 400 to 500, if not longer, in the making of when we began to become disconnected from nature and began to pull away from the divine, which is in nature. We began to lose all of it, in my humble opinion. And so how do we get it all back in a time?
That's it. How do we get it back? Because my feeling is, talking out my arse here to a certain extent, but certainly like watch that program you recommended on Apple, the morning show.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And I assume that when you say the Me Too movement, what you're saying is people coming out of the woodwork saying that they have suffered some form of abuse and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, when you say there's so much work to do, what that conjures up in my mind is more people pushing against. And yet I don't know how else I do know how else we should do it, but it's hard to see how else we should do it, you know, because in my mind, having more people pushing against this, starting movements against this, starting awareness, I find that a real conflict, because it's important to raise awareness, but it's very difficult to raise awareness without it sounding like a complaint. You know?
Yeah. What I guess I keep thinking back to, because I also listen to you and when you talk about resistance and Abraham Hicks and law of attraction. So then I think, okay, I am not, it is not me that needs to be the push or the movement or whatever, because that's not, I always call it my piece of pie, right? That's not my piece of pie. I didn't choose this life to be an activist.
And nobody should be, according to law of attraction.
Yeah, maybe that's probably true. Yeah. I feel
in
like,
that you should be, you can push for something. So it's more like, I guess the analogy would be you saying there's this book about corporate America and the role that the divine feminine plays in that. That's productive, that's helpful, that's moving in the right direction. Writing a book, on the other hand, about what a bunch of men are, can I say that word, is not helpful, although very satisfying.
Yeah,
because it just riles people up. And I still can't believe that even now, with all the work I've done on everything, that I'm quite easily poked into, it's all there, it's all still there.
Yeah.
I suppose these are issues that we are both aware of, but aren't actively working on. So they are still very raw, even if they're not, even if they're hidden, shall we say, they're still there.
Yeah. And for me, because yes, I was like you know, I would sign the petition, do the march, listen to the political music, which U2's still my favorite band, but now I'm hearing them a different way. Anyway, we can talk about that later. But with all the work that we've done in the last couple of years, to me, it's more, I need to come at things from a place of love and not fear. And when I do, the ripple effect, that's what I bring. I bring me and I bring the ripple effect. And then because, okay, so in the US here, we've got, tomorrow's January 6th, which a year ago tomorrow is when the insurrection in this country happened, when the one party tried to overthrow the election. Do you remember this?
Okay, this isn't historical, this is Trump.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I thought you were talking about something way back when. Right, okay, yes.
Yeah,
is that what it's called, insurrection?
Yeah, and so, yeah, it is. Was it? Well,
it sounds biblical.
Biblical? I don't know.
Resurrection, insurrection.
Resurrection, insurrection. No, insurrection, not resurrection. Anyway, oh God, no. Like I could go down a little. Anyway, so there's a lot of information, and there's a lot of stories in the press about it or not about it or whatever. And I could get all caught up in it because I'm like, we gotta do the right thing. We gotta do the right thing. We gotta do the right. People have to be aware. They have to know. And it's like, I just have to hold a space here. Because if I can't judge, I don't want to judge, right? But I have to just hold a space of love and let it ripple.
So I had an image when you were talking about your son. Two things, not son, sorry, your nephew. So two things. First of all, we talked about books. I told you about Puzzle. There's a bit in that film Puzzle. It's not part of the big story at all. But her son wants to be a chef, but doesn't, obviously senses that father won't approve. I mean, not in a dictatorial way, but there's just references to it. It's not a big part of the story. But actually, what occurred to me was I dance with Sally. I keep meaning, I've got some videos. And she looks, I think it's funny because in the video she looks really uncomfortable, but she's not. You can just feel it in her body. She just cuddles in here and then she starts making puddings on my shoulder and she just loves it. So I put on a song that I can sing to. She presses against my throat. She loves it when I sing, and we dance we sing, presumably, usually for a whole song, and she just loves it, right? And like Gary started doing it.
Oh.
So this is the most unaffectionate man I've ever met. I wouldn't say Gary's not alpha male, but he's very so he's not alpha male at all, but at the same time very Scottish, doesn't talk about stuff, doesn't talk about feelings or anything like that. So whilst he's not overtly alpha, he is very hidden, shall we say. So first he would start, because he just thinks it's so funny watching her. So at first he would come and dance with us together, and she just loves that. And now he picks her up and sings to her. So this I'm saying, this is not, that's how you influence people. I haven't asked him to do it. I haven't made him do it. He's seen me do it with her. He loves watching her do it. He did it and he could feel it, how it feels, because she's just beside herself. I'll have to post it on my YouTube channel. I look ridiculous and I'm singing completely out of tune, but it's the quickest way I know to raise your vibration, because it's fun. You're singing, which is good for your vibration, and then there's just all this love and her purring and then making puddings on you. But like, he started doing that.
Yeah.
That's how we influence people, by doing something special and good and holding our vibration, and then people are attracted to that.
Yeah.
I don't know how that translates, but
no, it's okay, so I'm going to say two things. One, by you posting it and sharing it and letting other people see it, you will help other people raise their vibrations. And that may not be your intention, doesn't have to be, but that I can see that ripple effect. And of course I lost the second thing I was going to say. Posting it. Oh, but keeping it hidden. Some people may look at that and think, oh, that's crazy. She's singing to her cat and whatever. But that's the stuff that we shouldn't hide. Why can't we share? I mean, that is such a connection to nature in so many ways. I mean, just the mere fact that you're holding the cat, the mere fact that you're honoring what your cat wants, the mere fact that there's music and dance, which is, I mean, it's so many ways it's connection. And if you even think about just those couple of points, all of those points are things that we continually hide as human beings, that we, I don't know, and are completely drawn to it. Or touch a tree. Like, I took a walk with Lucas yesterday, and along a busy street, there were several trees that I could just feel just wanted me to connect to them. So I just sat and touched them, and cars are driving by, and I'm like, I know people think I'm nuts. What's that woman doing? She okay? What the hell? And I'm like, because I felt.
But the more you do something, the less you care.
Yeah.
Because I started doing what's it called, body groove, I think I told you. It's just moving your body, and it's fun and that, but we live in a house that, especially in winter, the light, if I turn the light on, or even with just the reflection of the telly, I am highlighted across the whole valley, this middle-aged woman bouncing out into the living room, and I just don't feel, I'm just not okay with that. It's just I'm just not quite there yet. And it's the same when I'm pointing at various bits of the house. When I'm in the kitchen with the cat, I am aware that if the light's on and somebody walks down the road, they could see me, but actually I don't care. With the cat, I don't care. I do about the dancing around. I've actually stopped doing it because I can't be bothered with it. I love the principle, but I just don't like their music enough. I need to actually just dance to my own music. That's really what is required here. I just haven't got around to it. But
Isn't
the dancing,
that a metaphor?
Dance to your own music. Yeah. But the dancing with Sally, I'm not sure I care if people see that.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. Yeah.
I'll dig out the video, post it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of today's episode. If you want to follow us, you can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. If you look below, there's all the channels down there and all the links that you need, including Julie and I's personal social channels as well. If you have any comments or other things you'd like us to talk about, please do get in touch, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching. We are making light. To human beings.